that there is any connection whatever between Henley and Miss Renée?" he asked. "It is possible," was the reply. "I had thought of that. If there is a connection it is not apparent yet." "Then how was it she was killed, or killed herself, whichever may be true, and—" "The attempt to kill Henley killed her. That's all I can say now." "That all?" asked Hatch, after a pause. "No. Warn Mr. Henley immediately that he is in grave danger. Remember the person who has planned this will probably go to any extreme. I don't know Mr. Henley, of course, but from the fact that he always had a light at night I gather that he is a timid sort of man. Not necessarily a coward, but a man lacking in stamina. Therefore one who might better disappear for a week or so until the mystery is cleared up. Above all, impress upon him the importance of the warning." The thinking machine opened his pocket book and took from it the scarlet thread which he had picked from the rope of the flagpole. "Here, I believe, is the real clue to the problem," he explained to Hatch. "What does it seem to be?" Hatch examined it closely. "I should say a strand from a Turkish bathrobe," was his final judgment. "Possibly. Ask some cloth expert what he makes of it. Then, if it sounds promising, look into it. Find out if by any possibility it can be any part of any garment worn by any person in the apartment house." "But it's so slight," Hatch began. "I know," the other interrupted tartly. "It's slight, but I believe it is a part of the wearing apparel of the person, man or woman, who has 4 times attempted to kill Mr. Henley, and who did kill the girl. Therefore it is important." Hatch looked at him quickly. "Well, how, in what manner, did it come where you found it?" "Simple enough," said the scientist. "It is a wonder that there were not more pieces of it, that's all." Perplexed by his instructions, but confident of results, Hatch left the thinking machine. What possible connection could this tiny bit of scarlet thread found on the flagpole have with one shutting off the gas in Henley's rooms? How did anyone go into Henley's rooms to shut off the gas? How was it Miss Renée was dead? What was the manner of her death? A cloth expert in a great department store turned his knowledge on the tiny bit of scarlet for the illumination of Hatch, but he could go no further than to say that it seemed to be part of a Turkish bathrobe. "Man or woman's?" asked Hatch. "The material from which bathrobes are made is the same for both men and women," was the reply. "I can say nothing else. Of course there's not enough of it to even guess at the pattern of the robe." Then Hatch went to the financial district and was ushered into the office of Weldon Henley, a slender, handsome man of 32 or 3 years, pallid of face and nervous in manner. He still showed the effect of the gas poisoning, and there was even a trace of furtive fear of something, he himself didn't know what, in his actions. Henley talked freely to the newspaper man of certain things, but of other things he was resentfully reticent. He admitted his engagement to Miss Lipscomb, and finally even admitted that Miss Lipscomb's hand had been sought by another man, Regnault Cabell, formerly of Virginia. "Could you give me his address?" asked Hatch. "He lives in the same apartment house with me, 2 floors above," was the reply. Hatch was startled more than he would have cared to admit. "Are you on friendly terms with him?" he asked. "Certainly," said Henley. "I won't say anything further about this matter. It would be unwise for obvious reasons. I suppose you consider that this turning on of the gas was an attempt on your life?" "I can't suppose anything else." Hatch studied the pallid face closely as he asked the next question. "Do you know Miss Regnier was found dead today?" "Dead?" exclaimed the other, and he rose. "Who? What? Who is she?" It seemed a distinct effort for him to regain control of himself. The reporter detailed then the circumstances of the finding of the girl's body, and the broker listened without comment. From that time forward all the reporter's questions were either parried, or else met with a flat refusal to answer. Finally Hatch repeated to him the warning which he had from the thinking machine, and feeling that he had accomplished little, went away. At 8 o'clock that night, a night of complete darkness, Henley was found unconscious, lying in a little used walk in the common. There was a bullet hole through his left shoulder, and he was bleeding profusely. He was removed to the hospital, where he regained consciousness for just a moment. "Who shot you?" he was asked. "None of your business," he replied, and lapsed into unconsciousness. 4. Entirely unaware of this latest attempt on the life of the broker, Hutchinson Hatch steadily pursued his investigations. They finally led him to an intimate friend of Regnault Cabell. The young Southerner had apartments on the 4th floor of the big house off Commonwealth Avenue, directly over those Henley occupied, but 2 flights higher up. This friend was a figure in the social set of the Back Bay. He talked to Hatch freely of Cabell. "He's a good fellow," he explained, "one of the best I ever met, and comes of one of the best families Virginia ever had, a true FFV. He's pretty quick-tempered and all that, but an excellent chap, and everywhere he has gone here he has made friends." "He used to be in love with Miss Lipscomb of Virginia, didn't he?" asked Hatch casually. "Used to be?" the other repeated with a laugh. "He is in love with her. But recently he understood that she was engaged to Weldon Henley, a broker. You may have heard of him? And that, I suppose, has dampened his ardor considerably. As a matter of fact, Cabell took the thing to heart. He used to know Miss Lipscomb in Virginia. She comes from another famous family there, and he seemed to think he had a prior claim on her. Hatch heard all these things as any man might listen to gossip, but each additional fact was sinking into his mind, and each additional fact led his suspicions on deeper into the channel they had chosen. Cabell is pretty well to do, his informant went on. Not rich, as we count riches in the North, but pretty well to do, and I believe he came to Boston because Miss Lipscomb spends so much of her time here. She's a beautiful young woman of 22, and extremely popular in the social world everywhere, particularly in Boston. Then there was the additional fact that Henley was here. No chance at all for Cabell? Hatch suggested. Not the slightest, was the reply. Yet despite the heartbreak he had, he was the first to congratulate Henley on winning her love. And he meant it too. What's his attitude toward Henley now? Asked Hatch. His voice was calm, but there was an underlying tense note imperceptible to the other. They meet and speak and move in the same set. There is no love lost on either side, I don't suppose, but there is no trace of any ill feeling. Cabell doesn't happen to be a vindictive sort of man. Vindictive? And the other laughed. No, he's like a big boy, forgiving and all that. Hot-tempered, though. I could imagine him, in a fit of anger, making a personal matter of it with Henley, but I don't think he ever did. The mind of the newspaper man was rapidly focusing on one point. The rush of thoughts, questions, and doubts silenced him for a moment. Then, how long has Cabell been in Boston? 7 or 8 months. That is, he has had apartments here for that long, but he has made several visits south. I suppose it's south. He has a tick of dropping out of sight occasionally. I understand that he intends to go south for good very soon. If I am not mistaken, he is trying now to rent his suite. Hatch looked suddenly at his informant. An idea of seeing Cabell and having a legitimate excuse for talking to him had occurred to him. "I'm looking for a suite," he volunteered at last. "I wonder if you would give me a card of introduction to him? We might get together on it." Thus it happened that half an hour later, about 10 minutes past 9 o'clock, Hatch was on his way to the big apartment house. In the office he saw the manager. "Heard the news?" asked the manager. "No," Hatch replied. "What is it?" "Somebody's shot Mr. Henley as he was passing through the common early tonight." Hatch whistled in amazement. "Is he dead?" "No, but he is unconscious. The hospital doctors say it is a nasty wound, but not necessarily dangerous." "Who shot him? Do they know?" "He knows, but he won't say." Amazed and alarmed by this latest development, an accurate fulfillment of the thinking machine's prophecy, Hatch stood thoughtful for a moment, then, recovering his composure a little, asked for Cabell. "I don't think there's much chance of seeing him," said the manager. "He is going away on the midnight train, going south to Virginia." "Going away tonight?" Hatch gasped. "Yes. It seems to have been rather a sudden determination. He was talking to me here half an hour or so ago, and said something about going away. While he was here, the telephone boy told me that Henley had been shot. They had phoned from the hospital to inform us. Then Cabell seemed greatly agitated. He said he was going away tonight, if he could catch the midnight train, and now he is packing." "I suppose the shooting of Henley upset him considerably?" the reporter suggested. "Yes, I guess it did," was the reply. "They moved in the same set and belonged to the same clubs." The manager sent Hatch's card of introduction to Cabell's apartments. Hatch went up and was ushered into a suite identical with that of Henley's in every respect save in minor details of furnishings. Cabell stood in the middle of the floor with his personal belongings scattered about the room. His valet, evidently a Frenchman, was busily engaged in packing. Cabell's greeting was perfunctorily cordial. He seemed agitated. His face was flushed, and from time to time he ran his fingers through his long brown hair. He stared at Hatch in a preoccupied fashion. Then they fell into conversation about the rent of the apartments. "I'll take almost anything reasonable," Cabell said hurriedly. "You see, I'm going away tonight, rather more suddenly than I had intended, and I'm anxious to get the lease off my hands. I pay $200 a month for these, just as they are." "May I look them over?" asked Hatch. He passed from the front room into the next. Here, on a bed, was piled a huge lot of clothing, and the valet with deft fingers was brushing and folding, preparatory to packing. Cabell was directly behind him. "Quite comfortable, you see," he explained. "There's room enough if you are alone. Are you?" "Oh, yes," Hatch replied. "This other room here," Cabell explained, "is not in very tidy shape now. I have been out of the city for several weeks, and—" "What's the matter?" he demanded suddenly. Hatch had turned quickly at the words and stared at him, then recovered himself with doubt. "I beg your pardon," he stammered. "I rather thought I saw you in town here a week or so ago. Of course I didn't know you, and I was wondering if I could have been mistaken." "Must have been," said the other easily. "During the time I was away a friend